Yeah. Can everybody see me? I am standing up, just so you know. Okay. The American Legion Post 178 would like to thank the City of Frisco. Its Parks and Recreation and Communications departments couldn't happen without them. They've done a great job for us. The American Legion Auxiliary and today's volunteers for making this event possible. I'd also like to recognize the Frisco Community Band, which will be providing our musical score for this ceremony, and Miss Leslie Rainey, who will sing our national anthem. We thank them for being here this morning. I'm good at reading this, in case you didn't know. To begin our ceremony, I'd ask that you please rise if you're able and remove your hats as the American Legion Post 178 Color Guard posts our nation and state's colors. And please remain standing after the presentation of the colors for our national anthem and invocation.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rockets' red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say, does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave? Thank you for your service.
I'd like to now have Mr. Delman Outland, our chaplain at Post 178, to provide the invocation.
Let us pray. Dear Lord, on this Veterans Day, we honor our veterans, worthy men and women who have given their best when they are called upon to serve and protect our country. We pray that you will bless them, Lord, for their unselfish service in the continued struggle to preserve our freedom, our safety, and our country's heritage for all of us. Bless them abundantly for the hardship they face, for the sacrifice they made, and for the many different contributions to American victories over dictatorship and oppression. We respect them, We thank them, we honor them, and we are proud of them. And we pray that you will watch over these special people and bless them with peace and happiness. In their name we pray. Amen.
Please be seated. I would now like to introduce to you the commander of Post 178. Commander served in U.S. Navy and Navy Reserve, was a former Navy intelligence, most notably serving at Defense Intelligence Agency, U.S. Central Command, Desert Storm, and Desert Shield veteran, former Chief Petty Officer Joanne Shum.
Good morning, Frisco. It's a pleasure to be here with you today. We pay tribute to our veteran community today. It is a day that we celebrate the men and women who sacrificed their time and energy to a greater cause. We celebrate the men and women who laid aside the comfort of home and family, of predictable lives, to be a part of something bigger than themselves. Today is a day to acknowledge and appreciate those who have served. Not only do we appreciate their service, but we are grateful to our brothers and sisters who stood between freedom and oppression for others, and we are grateful for them, especially for those who fought in combat and made it safely back home. Today reminds us that serving our nation was challenging. Do we really need a reminder? We faced difficulties. We pushed through tough times, and when tasked with an impossible command, we developed mental toughness, determined to get the job done, many times without choice, and we did it together successfully. Through it all, we supported each other. We learned how to work together as a team. We learned how to lead, and we grew better from our experiences. Most of us did this far away from our loved ones, who also faced hardships of their own while we were away. On Veterans Day, it's important to recognize our families, too, for their service and for the steadfast support they provided during our absence. Our loved ones stayed behind. They cared for our children. They made difficult choices, endured long separations, and very often worried about our safety, sometimes not knowing where we were or if we were all right. Let's take this opportunity to thank our families for their sacrifices and unwavering support. Today we honor and celebrate America's veterans, not only for their courage, their love of country, and for their service, but now for their unparalleled leadership skills, gritty determination, and can-do spirit for getting the job done here, back at home, in the civilian world. God bless our veterans. God bless our military, and God please bless those who lead it. Before we get to our program this morning, I'd like to make a heartfelt appeal to any veteran who needs help to reach out today to someone here with the American Legion or the VFW. I'd like to make this appeal not only to veterans, but to family members as well. If you know a vet who needs help, please find one of us after the ceremony so we can connect with you the services you may need. Thank you.
At this point, I'd like to recognize the Frisco City Council. Are there members of the City Council here today? Please stand. John, thank you. I think I mentioned this last year, and I'll mention it again this year. I've lived in 24 different locations, and I've never seen a city council like the one in Frisco as supportive as this city council is of the veteran community. So we really appreciate you all. Thank you. Many of you know our first speaker. He's been a strong and steady leader of Frisco and a bold advocate for veterans in Frisco for many years now. This individual served in the U.S. Army for 13 years as a senior counterintelligence agent. Wow. Receiving the best leadership training in the world. And that underscores a very important message that veterans who transition back into the civilian world are the backbone of the America, who operate with the greatest leadership skills and team-building spirit. John has brought these traits plus passion to leading Frisco with Mayor Cheney and our hardworking council members into still being ranked one of the best places to live in America. He was deployed to Saudi Arabia as part of Operation Desert Shield and Desert Storm. He was received numerous awards, including Congressional Veteran Commendation by Congressman Sam Johnson, and was recognized by Pepsi Frito-Lay with the Valor Leadership Award. His work with the various veteran organizations, John continues, like so many other veterans, to serve his country by serving his community. Looks like we're surrounded by intelligence here today. I wonder why they picked me to be the master of ceremonies. Please welcome City Council Member John Keating.
Well, good morning, Frisco. It is good to be here on a bright sunny day. We've been out here before in torrential rain, and sometimes I think we get a bigger crowd when the weather is bad. And I don't blame you all for filling the seats in the back. I'm not going to make you move up here. Enjoy the shade. We love the trees and the memorial that we have here today. There's a lot of work that went into this to get it here in the first place. 2021, we did a refresh here and added the Battlefield Cross. And then just recently, we unveiled the Purple Heart Monument back on September 20. So if you notice, the Purple Heart Monument complements the Gold Star Family Monument, because obviously the two are inextricably tied together. So it is an honor and a privilege to stand before you today on behalf of Mayor Jeff Cheney and our City Council, and as a veteran. Welcome, Bert, on our City Council. And I don't think we have any other elected officials here today. Oh, yes, Laura Rummel is here. This is why I ask. So, Laura, hello, welcome. Air Force brat. So proud to have you here. Thank you for coming out. And thank you also to our host, Frisco American Legion, Peter J. Corsi, 178. And thank you to another round of applause for Leslie Rainey, who sang our national anthem. That was fantastic. So I was practicing my speech this morning with Marcia, and she got a little tear in her eye. And I said, "Oh, babe, is my speech that good?" And she said, "No, I'm just excited that Gunner is home." And Gunner is her son, who is, you get emotional here, serving active duty in the Marine Corps, and he is just now returning from a 9-month overseas deployment. His plane literally came in late last night. So she is not here this morning. She is working diligently to make sure the house is perfect and everything is set up for him today. And, of course, her daughter went to A&M, so later we will be watching the A&M game. So all these wonderful things are happening today, and couldn't be more excited. So just wanted to share that with you. She sends her regrets that she can't be here this morning. I'm going to share with you the answer to a very important yet simple question, and it was asked earlier this morning. As we pause to honor those who have worn the uniform of our nation, the men and women who have stood watch while others slept, who have borne the weight of duty, and have carried the flag of freedom into places where freedom was not yet known. It's fitting on this day to reflect on the song that has echoed through every battle, ceremony, and homecoming since our nation's earliest days. Of course, the Star-Spangled Banner. Francis Scott Key wrote those words in 1814 as he watched through the night to see if our young nation's flag would survive the bombardment of Fort McHenry. As dawn broke through the smoke and cannon fire, he saw it, our Star-Spangled Banner, still waving, proof that America still stood. 2 centuries later, his question still rings out every time we sing it. Oh, say, does that star-spangled banner yet wave over the land of the free and the home of the brave? It's not just a lyric, it's a test, a question each generation of Americans must answer. Thanks to our veterans, the answer is still yes. Yes, our flag still waves because brave men and women have kept it flying in the face of every threat. Yes, it still waves over battlefields where courage was tested and freedom was defended. Yes, it still waves over quiet cemeteries where heroes rest, and over bustling cities where their legacy lives on. And yes, it still waves over a nation that, though imperfect, strives always towards liberty, justice, and unity. Our flag is much more than cloth and color. It's a symbol of sacrifice, of generations who have stood for something larger than themselves. Every stripe tells a story of struggle and triumph. Every star represents a place where someone believed America was worth fighting for. Our flag, our star-spangled banner, has seen a lot. When we look upon our flag today, we're reminded that the strength of our nation has never come from our weapons or our wealth, but from the hearts of those willing to serve, from the soldier in the desert, the sailor at sea, the airman in the sky, the Marine on the front line. And our guardians, our first responders, are those brave men and women who serve their country by serving their community, standing watch over our families at home. They've proven that freedom is not inherited, it is earned, protected, and renewed by every act of courage and every promise kept. So on this Veterans Day, let us answer Francis Scott Key's question with conviction. Yes, our star-spangled banner yet waves. It waves because of our veterans. It waves because of their families. It waves because of the enduring spirit of the American people, brave, free, and unyielding. May it always wave over the land of the free and the home of the brave. In closing, please remember, you are worth it. Veterans who cherish the values and virtues upon which our nation was founded would also say, you are worth it. Honor the sacrifices our veterans have made, live your best life, and continue to be amazing. Thank you. Thank you to our veterans, and may God bless America.
Thanks, John. Does a great job every time. Couldn't go without him. Our keynote speaker today is John Bagwell, a decorated veteran with a Bronze Star, with a V-Cert device and a Purple Heart. His experience has recently been chronicled in a documentary, Vietnam, The War That Changed America, released on Apple TV. John Bagwell is a Vietnam veteran who served in the United States as a DJ announcer for the American Forces radio station. Part of Good Morning America, is it? Okay. Good Morning Vietnam, he says. Okay. He was wounded during the Tet Offensive during the siege of Hue, South Vietnam, where he received a Bronze Star with a V device and the Purple Heart. He was part of the only American Forces radio or television station to be taken by the enemy during any war. Of the staff, 5 were taken prisoner, 3 were killed, and John was able to escape. Over the next 2 days, John was shot at over a dozen times, 6 by the North Vietnamese and 6 by the Americans who did not know he was behind enemy lines. He has found humor in the face of tragedy. His story will inspire you to face another day. He has been active in the veteran group and is a past commander of the Military Order of the Purple Heart, Chapter 542 in Dallas, and is on the board for Collin County Vietnam Veterans of America, Chapter 1122. He lives in the Dallas area, is married to Rosemary Bagwell, and has 2 sons, Jonathan and Ben. Let's please welcome John Bagwell to the podium.
Well, good afternoon, Vietnam. I was a disc jockey in Vietnam. I had the afternoon shift, and I will say that good afternoon does not have the same ring as good morning, Vietnam. But people ask me was the movie Good Morning Vietnam after me. It was not. It was for a gentleman named Adrian Cronauer, who was a disc jockey. Robin Williams, if you saw the movie, played him, and Robin Williams was funny. Adrian Cronauer was not funny. They should have made the movie about me. I was funny. Very funny. Well, when we think about the military and veterans, sometimes you talk about veterans, people think about somebody jumping out of a helicopter, rolling a tank, maybe an Air Force plane, but the American military and veterans are composed of people in a variety of areas. As I said, I was a disc jockey. When you go to American base, you will find probably just about every vocation that is imaginable. They need them all in the military. There are cooks, there are clerks, there are all kinds of support people. Had a good friend that I met recently, a veteran, and we were talking about what he did in real life, and he said he was a fireman in Chicago for 30 years. I said, oh, really? What'd you do in the military? He said, well, I was a fireman. I said, really? We had firemen in the military? He said, well, of course we did. What would happen if your barracks caught on fire? What would happen if a plane crashed on the airfield? It was the firemen that came out. I said, I never saw a fireman while I was in the military. He said, that's good. Nothing was burning down, right? So we are here to recognize veterans, and I'm going to share a little bit of my experience today. Before we do, I just want to remind you of the active duty military. We are celebrating veterans, but let's remember the military that's there today. I just pulled some figures this morning. 1.3 million people are active in the military. 166,000 are overseas. Ladies and gentlemen, we have 178 countries where there's an American military presence. Think about that, 178. And many of these people are in danger protecting us as an Americans. 178 countries. I couldn't spell or pronounce most of those, and I couldn't find them on a map probably. To give you some kind of a reference to that, there's only 195 countries in the world, and we have people in 178. So let's remember those that are active duty today too. Now, many of you are veterans today, and I'm going to just share my story. I do appreciate being invited here. Thank you, Commander. Good to see John Keating here again. We've been at a number of places. Thank you for your support for veterans all over the place. My wife is generally here to experience my talk, and when I start getting a little long, she's raised the finger, keep moving. So I've designated someone over here. When you get bored, don't just get up and walk, just wrap me up. Okay, so I'm going to share two areas that happened to me. I was, of course, a disc jockey in Vietnam, and that was a great assignment, a cushy assignment. And I was a disc jockey. I was at An-Khê with the 1st Air Cav Division. We had a commander, General Tolson, that loved rock and roll music and loved the guys and wanted us to play rock and roll music on the station, and we did. I played a number of times, we've got to get out of this place, and took request. When I arrived in Vietnam, I weighed 108 pounds. Look at me today. I'm pretty skinny still, but I weighed 108 pounds. My commander looked at me and said, gosh, you're skinny. I said, well, yeah. He said, not only are you skinny, you're scrawny. I said, okay. Well, pretty soon I picked up the nickname, the Scrawny Thing. So I was Army Private John Bagwell, the Scrawny Thing, on the radio. And we came up with this deal. The part of the radio station was, of course, to make it sound like home, to give the troops a part of the United States. We're playing rock music, and we're talking and having a good time. And we came up with this idea to make fun of me. So had a guy in our group that had a very deep voice in addition to mine, And he would record these drop-ins, and they were called Hey Bagwells. And there would be a sound of a knock on the door. He would say, Hey Bagwell, and get off a remark about me being skinny. And then the sound effects of the door slamming. And we put those in between records. So they started off pretty interesting. We'd have a knock on the door. Hey Bagwell. Hey Bagwell, you're skinny. In fact, you're so skinny, I hear you have to jump around in the shower just to get wet. And the door would shut. So we needed more material because I had a show every day. And I will say that the quality of the jokes depended on the number of beers we had the night before as we were trying to figure things out. I actually sent a letter to my mother in Oklahoma. I said, could you go by the bookstore and get a book on insults, particularly on people being skinny? I can imagine what my mother thought about that. So a funny thing happened, though. My audience started writing jokes. The guys that were listening to the radio station would scribble something on the back of an envelope, and they'd send it back if they were in the field. We had telephones. We had the old crank things. And somebody would get on there and crank up the phone and get the operator, and the operator would say, are you calling in airstrikes? No, ring me that disc jockey back in on K. And they would ring the disc jockey. I'd pick up the phone. They'd often request a record. And sometimes they'd give me a good joke. By the way, people asked me what the most requested record was. It was a record that was not very popular here in the States, I don't think. It was a record called Coming Home Soldier. Anybody ever hear that? I think it was Bobby Vinton. And it was about, I'm coming home, I'm coming home. And all the short-timers would call and want to hear that. Of course, if you just landed and you had 364 days to go, you didn't want to hear that record at all. But we played that quite frequently. As I said, they would write the jokes. I would go into the mess hall, and someone would holler across, and somebody would say, Bagwell, you're so skinny. Somebody on the other side of the hall would say, how skinny is he? And then somebody would give off a joke, and I'd write it down. I had material for the next night. Some of them did get a little wild. It finally got to not just me being skinny, but other things. There was one of my favorite, by the way. Hey, Bagwell. Hey, Bagwell. Not only are you skinny, but you're ugly. I heard that your mother had to tie a string around your neck with a pork chop just to get the family dog to play with you. So that's how it went. A disc jockey having fun, 18 years old, in Vietnam. I remember my mother met me at the airport or at the bus station when I was leaving. She was really upset. She was just screaming, oh my God, they're going to bring my son back in a pine box. He's going to Vietnam, he's going to get killed. I was 18, thought that I was invincible, and I literally thought, I'm going to Vietnam, I'm going to have a cushy job. Everybody else may get killed or shot, but not me. I'm John Bagwell. Of course, as it turned out, a lot different. I was in the radio station at on K, and we had to get transferred. Excuse me if I take a bit of water. We got transferred to the city of Hue during the Tet Offensive. And some of you old-timers will remember Hue, 1968, is what changed the war. I arrived in Hue one day before the start of the Tet Offensive in 1968. January the 29th, 1968. General Westmoreland said, we knew they were coming. I wish he'd told us. 300 Americans were in Hue. 300. Most were support people. They were truck drivers, cooks. We had 20 U.S. Marines to guard our base. 20. In the days before, the North Vietnamese moved 30,000 North Vietnamese troops into the city of Hue through tunnels. 30,000 against 300. 99 to 1. When the fighting started, we were in a house across the street from the radio station. The radio station was actually physically in the city of Hue. We were under attack. We held out for 5 days before they finally came to get us. At that particular point, there were 9 of us. Keep in mind, we were all disc jockeys, engineers. There was 1 civilian from NBC News that we invited to come stay with us. And we were under attack. And I was guarding a window. And a young Vietnamese jumped out in front of me. And he was probably 11, 12 years old. I was 19 at the time. He pointed a rifle at me. The window, we were as close as me to you. I could have stepped forward with my rifle, hit him on the head with the butt of my rifle. That's how close we were. He was scared. So he takes a shot at me. Literally, one came right by my right ear. The second one came by my left ear. It was so close, the hair on the side of my ear stood up. I realized if I didn't kill him, he was going to kill me. Quite honestly, I was shaking too. I managed to get him, and he lay dead. You know, the Army teaches you how to kill. They don't teach you how to feel when you kill someone. Like so many other guys in Vietnam, I'd never killed anybody before. I didn't know how to feel. But I remember thinking, this kid has a mama and daddy just like me. Boy, he does not want to be here. I just killed this guy. Well, we had to get out of the house, and we had to get out real quick. The civilian ran out front. I followed him. I'd seen enough John Wayne movies. Keep in mind, I'm not a trained fighter. I've been trained as a disc jockey. I've gone through basic training, which teaches you a little bit, but I'm not an infantry person. So I'd seen enough John Wayne movies. I kind of laid down fire as I jumped down in, and I'm in this gully. And my friend looks at me and he says, "Have you been shot?" I said, "No." He said, "Well, I have. I'm bleeding. I think I'm going into shock." And he was bleeding like we used to say up in Oklahoma, like a stuffed hog. This man was bleeding out of his leg, and it was gushing just blood as fast as you could. So I pulled off my belt and wrapped it around him, got a stick, and made a good solid tourniquet. Now, keep in mind, I'm the scrawny thing. I have a 28-inch waist. I'm wearing a size 30 fatigues because there aren't any 28-inch waist fatigues in Vietnam. It's being held up by a belt, which is now on my friend. So I had to get out of there, and I quickly, with one hand was holding my steel pot, another hand holding my rifle, another hand trying to hold him, another hand trying to hold my pants up. We get around, circle around, and there's more firing. I look up. He gets shot. He falls to the ground. I check his pulse. He's dead. Well, I didn't think to pull the belt off him and put it back on me, so I'm running up the street. And finally, I look down, and I see a hole in my combat boots. And I realize I've been shot. And the brain says, "You've been shot. This is supposed to hurt." And I thought, this hurts. It wasn't a big wound. It was interesting. They were on top of buildings, and as my foot came up, it came in under the foot. The bullet came down, took all the skin off my foot. Didn't break any bones. took the skin off, came out the end of my boot. Still, I was bleeding, and it wasn't an artery, so I wasn't totally falling. But I didn't know where I was going to go, and I was in the city of Hawaii, where I had only been there 2 days, well, at this time, 5 days. So I looked up, and here is this Catholic church. Run up to the front of the door, and I knock on the door, and I'm in a uniform, and a Catholic priest comes to the door, and I spoke very little Vietnamese. So I said, me, army, military, you help me? And he said, yeah, sure, come on in. He spoke 3 languages, French, English, of course, and Vietnamese. And he said, I'll be glad to help you and keep you here, but we need to do something. And I made a decision at that time that saved my life, but later put me into danger. I got out of my military uniform and put on civilian clothes. The priest looked at me and he said, you're small. I think I can make you look like a Vietnamese. I thought, well, how are we going to do this? Puts me in civilian clothes. He had bandages, no medicine, but lots of bandages. Bandaged me all up. All you could see was just my eyes. Bandaged my hands. And I'm in civilian clothes. And I'm sitting down on the ground. There's probably 50 other Vietnamese that are in the facility taking refuge. And all of a sudden, the North Vietnamese burst into the church in North Vietnamese uniforms. They start going down the row. I look up, and about 2 inches from me is a Russian rifle aimed right at my face. I close my eyes. It's over. 10 seconds later, I open my eyes. They were down the road. They had thought that I was just another Vietnamese. Well, after they left, the priest said, we got a lot going on here. He said, I'm going to put you upstairs in the steeple of the church. So he did, and he brought me a hot Coke and a little bowl of rice. And I was hungry. Nearly 2 days I hadn't had anything to eat. And this little bowl of rice, there were some little black things, and they were crawling around. But I ate it anyway, and my wife will attest it took probably 20 years for me to ever eat rice again, even Mexican rice at a restaurant. But I'm upstairs, I'm in this church, and a couple of minutes to sort of relax, and then all of a sudden, the church is under fire. I mean, the sides coming down to the church on all 4 sides. I'm sitting there looking up, upstairs. All the walls are gone. I'm looking out over the city. It was the Americans, by the way, that were shooting the church down. Which is kind of interesting because I was speaking at a Tet reunion in Abilene about 15 years ago. A guy comes up to me after the speaking, and he said, my brother is the one that fired the artillery to take that church out. I know it was because he said he took a church out during the city of Hue during the Tet Offensive. And he didn't want to, but he had the commandment to take it out. I said, well, you get home and talk to your brother, tell him he missed. The story gets even more interesting because several years ago, I joined a VFW post. I had not been a member of VFW for a long time, joined a post in Richardson. And I'm telling this story, and Mr. Tetford looks up at me, and one of the members of the church there, and he says, I got to tell you something, John. He said, I'm the commander that gave the instructions to blow the church off the map. He said, I didn't fire it, but I told my people to do it. I said, well, I already talked to one of your people, and he missed. So it is interesting how these things happen. That is my phone going off because it's got a beep to it, and I apologize for that. Do I need to turn it off, or can you walk through that? I apologize for that. Okay, so I'm in the church, and I've got to figure out what I'm going to do. It's interesting because I'd been shot at already, and I'd been running through all this time. But I hadn't had much time to focus. I'm now focusing on the fact that I'm probably going to get shot. And I really had this wonderful experience. I am a Christian, a religious person. I'd become a Christian when I was at high school. I knew what it meant, but I hadn't really thought about much. But God spoke to me. And I tell some of my friends, I said, God spoke to you, John Bagwell. God was real to me. He spoke. I had this warm feeling. I'm a big breakfast eater, sort of like warm pancakes with warm syrup and warm butter. My whole body got warm. And God said, there's only two things that are going to happen. Number one, you're going to die, and you're going to meet Jesus. And you're a Christian, and that's okay. Or number two, you get out of this, and you've got a heck of a story to tell. That's it. And I realized either of those is probably going to be okay. I had this wonderful peace that came over me. I did not want to die, but I knew if I did, it'd be okay. Well, the Catholic priest came to me again, and he said, you got to get out of this place. And he said, there's a light there, and I think that's an American military base. I said, you think it is? He said, I'm not sure, but I think that's the Americans. If you will crawl there, you can get back to safety. Again, I said, you think? So at 11 o'clock at night, I took off from the church to what I thought was going to be an American military base. And I woke up every dog, every duck, every chicken, every ox, every farm animal in that area. I'm figuring somebody's going to know I'm out here and shoot at me. I get through the rice paddy a couple of hours, and an American helicopter flies over and shines a light. Well, I knew that the Americans did not know I was still alive, and I'm in civilian clothes, and I figure I'm going to get shot by an American pilot in a helicopter that thinks I'm a Vietnamese crawling through the thing, and there's an American military base here, and this Vietnamese is crawling toward it. Take him out. Well, they didn't. So I wound up again in a ravine next to the American military base. And I hadn't quite thought through, how am I going to surrender? How are they going to know it's me? So I had a white shirt, and I kind of dangled it laying in the rice paddy, and nothing happened. I started to sneeze, and it's February the 5th, actually the 6th. I'm sneezing, and I figured the guys on the other side are going to realize rice does not sneeze. There is somebody in there, and they're going to shoot at me. So I jumped up, and I shouted, "Don't shoot, I'm an American, for God's sake, don't shoot." And they started shooting. So I paused for a couple of seconds. He says, "You an American?" I said, "With my Okie accent, you can't tell I'm an American." He said, "Okay." He said, "What are you doing here?" I said, "Well, I was with the radio and TV station." He said, "No, I don't believe you." I said, "You don't believe I'm an American?" He said, "No, I believe you're American, but I don't think you're with the radio and TV station." He said, "They're all prisoner of war or dead." That's when I finally discovered they were POWs. I said, he said, "There's only one person. We haven't found the body of Bagwell, but he's dead. We just haven't found his body yet." I said, "Well, my name is Bagwell." He said, "Oh, you don't look well. Come on in." So he said, we thought you were dead. 7 o'clock in the morning, I'm at a small American facility. They welcomed me in. I'd been shot. It was not a great shot in that I wasn't bleeding a lot, but for 2.5 days I hadn't had any attention at all. I'd been in civilian clothes, barefoot some of the time, crawling through a rice paddy with ox poop and who knows what all. I looked at my leg, and my leg is turning black, almost all the way up to my kneecap. And now I'm in pain, deep pain. Well, they look at it, and they said, well, there's a MASH unit. Y'all have probably watched MASH on TV, surgical hospital. They said, there's a MASH unit about a mile away. They called up the MASH unit. They said, good news, we found Bagwell. He needs some medical attention, come get him. People at the MASH unit said, well, there's fighting going around in Way still. This is not a safe city. We're not going to come get him. You bring him to us. They said, well, wait a minute. Fighting's still going around here. We're not going to take him. You come get him. 7 o'clock in the morning. It took till 1:30 in the afternoon to figure out what to do with me. Finally, somebody threw me in the back of a Jeep, and they take me to the MASH unit, throw me out, and I get checked in. Now, if you've ever watched MASH, you know Major Houlihan. Of all the nurses in Vietnam, I get Major Houlihan. Major Houlihan has two ways, the Army way and the wrong way. And she takes one look at me and she said, gangrene is about to set in. We're going to have to cut your leg off. I said, oh, please, can I get a second opinion? She said, you're in the military now. There is no second opinion. And I started telling her, I said, look, I've been shot at by the Americans. I've been shot at by the Vietnamese. I've been to church. And I run through all this stuff that I'm doing. I was a disc jockey. All my friends are prisoner of war. They're dead. You know, can you do anything? And I pleaded with her not to take my leg off. So she reaches over to the counter, and there's this big bottle of iodine methylate. You know that stuff that your mom put on your knee when you scraped your knee when you were riding your bicycle? The stuff that's 108 proof? Well, she pours this on my open wound, and I scream bloody murder. I literally thought they were taking a chainsaw to cut my leg off. And she says, does that hurt? I said, well, yes, it does. She said, good, good. If it hurts, it's killing the infection. So she gave me a shot, and about every 30 minutes she kept coming back and pouring that methylate on my wound. And I started looking at my leg, and the black started coming down. So eventually I was able to save my leg and get back to the Americans. They sent me back to the American military group, and I still had 30 days left, but I did have a chance to call my mother. And at the time, they had the Mars service where you would call by short wave, and you'd call somebody in the state. I had 3 minutes, and you would get on the phone, you'd say, Mom, how are you doing? This is John, over. And then she'd say whatever she said, over. You had to do that in order to do it by short wave. So I spoke to my mom, and she knew that I had been in trouble. She had sensed as a mother that her son was being shot at. And so that was good. She knew everything was okay. An interesting thing happened following that. I got to come home after about 30 days. And a couple of days after I'm sitting there at home talking to my mom, she says, you know, a funny thing happened the other day. She said, a guy from Fort Sill came by, officer from Fort Sill, knocked on the door and said, Mrs. Bagwell, I'm here to inform you that your son is missing in action in Vietnam and presumed dead. And she looked at him and she said, what did he do this time? And the guy said, what do you mean? She said, well, I just talked to him a week ago on the phone. Why is he dead now? And the guy looks and he says, oh, well, we didn't know that. And what had happened when I had surrendered to the Americans and they thought that I was dead, nobody told anybody else that I was alive. So the Army thinks I'm dead, even though they sent me home, paid me, give me another duty assignment to go to, but they thought that I was dead. So that is sort of an abbreviated thing of me and what has happened to me over the years. I am grateful to be alive. I would not take anything from that military experience. Would want to do it again, but I'm thankful every day that I'm alive. I wake up having been shot at and shot and left for dead, thankful that I'm alive, and I have a whole new appreciation for just being alive for people. Well, that's my story, and I would encourage you today to look around our other veterans. Every veteran has a story. May not be exactly like mine, but they have a story. If you are a veteran, I hope that you will share that story. Also, I understand that for many veterans, particularly those in Vietnam, PTSD is real as well as other things, and people don't want to talk. And if you were talking to a veteran and you ask them what they want to do and they don't want to talk, please understand that. I have a cousin that was like a brother to me, and probably in 50 years he said 5 words about Vietnam. He just doesn't want to talk about it. We bring it up and it's, John, I'm not going to talk about it. And I understand that because it can be painful. But it also can be rewarding. I have told my story over and over. For me, it seems to be good. I can talk about it. Others cannot. That's my story. I appreciate you listening. Thank you, by the way, again, for inviting me and John Keating to see you and the people in Frisco that have been so supportive of this organization. Find a veteran today and give them a hug. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Thanks for sharing those. And also, thanks for sharing the statistics that you had. Let me, just for the group here, some statistics I'll share with you. Less than 5% of the United States population today can claim the title of veteran. By the year 2030, less than 3% will be able to claim that title. And by the year 2035, less than 2% will be able to claim the title of a veteran. So you as veterans, we as veterans, carry a tremendous weight going forward because we need to make sure we can tell our stories as John has done. Thank you, John. Here we go. Let me get back to where I'm supposed to be. Okay, at this point, the Frisco Community Band will play a medley of service anthems. Veterans and military members, when you hear your branch's song, please stand. If you're not able to stand, raise your hand so we may recognize you. Army. Marines. Navy. Coast Guard. Air Force. All up there. Let's have a round of applause for our veterans. We hope you've enjoyed our salute to the veterans of Frisco and North Texas. The American Legion Post 178, the American Legion Unit Auxiliary 178, the VFW Post 8273, and the City of Frisco would like to extend its thanks to every veteran of the United States Army, Navy, Air Force, Marine Corps, Space Command, Coast Guard, National Guard, and the reserves, all who serve to honor our country. Veterans has given us freedom, security, and the greatest nation on earth. Let's show our appreciation for their sacrifice and service. As we bring our ceremony to a close, please stand for the Frisco Community Band will now play God Bless America and America the Beautiful, followed by the benediction. our chaplain Outland will give our benediction now.
Let us pray. As we conclude this ceremony, we remember again all those who serve and are serving in our armed forces. Today and every day, may we honor our veterans. May we continue to the highest esteem those worthy men and women who give their best when they are called upon to serve and protect our country. And how the Lord be gracious and merciful to us. And let your good favors and blessings be with each of us. Help us, we seek to live as good citizens and carry out our responsibility to always honor you. In thy name, amen.
Our ceremony is over. Have a safe trip home, and God bless America.